teachers, and we have a gradual release of responsibility where over time they take over more and more teaching. We actually got this model from health, right? From the health residency models that doctors do, where they are working alongside a trained physician, right? So we copied this in education to have this residency. So they start 3 days a week in the fall, and then they continue into 3 days a week in the winter, and then they go to 4 and 5 days a week in the spring. And gradually they pick up responsibilities. For example, they will start with teaching lessons, and then they'll start with taking the lead on whole content areas, and then whole days, and then whole weeks, and then full classes. So in the beginning, it's more of a co-teaching model, and then it becomes more of a solo teaching model. First day of school to the last day of school. Our mentor teachers love it because they really get an extensive time with our candidates, but we also feel that it's culturally responsive. They get to know their kids and the communities they serve. So we don't move them to different locations. Now CAPE, they didn't like this. It was really interesting. They wanted our candidates to have what they call diverse experiences. The way we got around this is our students are required to do 20 hours in different contexts and document it. So they're able to go to other high schools or other content areas, and then CAPE was fine with it, right? And so we are able to get them into different contexts even though they have one placement for the year. I'm not sure what you do in health and what that looks like, right? If it's a little bit different. But this is the model that we use for our program. So we started with the end in mind. We took the definition of diversity from the CAPE handbook, right, and equity, and we started with it at the center. So if you notice, at the center is our focus on equity and excellence. And we've built a teacher evaluation model that we call a framework for equitable and excellent teaching. And this includes a focus on culture, right? The culture of power, what do students need to be successful in the U.S.? The power of culture, how do we draw from their own culture and funds of knowledge? And the power of their own consciousness. How do we develop their consciousness around a liberatory frame? So that's at the center of everything we do. And that guides our 5 standards for CAPE. So content and pedagogy is standard 1. Let's see. The field experience, the clinical experience at the top, it's a little hard to see, that's standard 2. Quality recruitment and selection is standard 3. Impact is standard 4. And continuous improvement is standard 5. So notice how we're linking everything to the standards, right? But at the core is our framework. That's our evaluation framework. I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay? So our framework has 4 dimensions: engage, plan, teach, and lead. Remember, you heard that in our mission. There's 4 dimensions, 15 competencies, and 59 indicators. We have rubrics of performance, just like InTask if you're familiar with it. And we have a field-based protocol. I'm going to show you what those look like. Okay? We have a field-based assessment and we have university assessment. So we distinguish those, right? We want to know what they're doing on the ground in the field, and we want to know how they're doing in their university classes. So we distinguish assessment in that way, in the field, in the university, right? I'm going to stop after I show you this so you get a sense of it, okay? So this is our framework. On the first part, you see the dimension. The second part, you see the competencies. And then the third part, you see indicators. So that basically is evidence, right? This is evidence that they met the competency. So what really counts is the competency. The second row is what we're looking for. And we're rating them using a scale and using rubrics. So what we do is we use this tool in the field. We use the rubrics to rate them. We have aligned our proficient to InTask, and we have aligned our advanced to InTask as well, to their rubrics. They're called the learning progressions. When I was on the InTask committee, I was building this framework, and so I was able to align it very nicely. This meets CAPE standards, because you have to demonstrate that you are including the InTask standards in standard 1. So our framework, this is our evidence that we're meeting InTask standards. This is what our tool looks like. So you see on the first column is our competencies and indicators, and then we take notes in column 2, and then we rate them from a 1 to 4. Okay. We do have an unsatisfactory category. If you look here, the first row is our unsatisfactory category. The second row, sorry, that's a 1. We are very aggressive about moving people out of the field if needed, right? If you're not going to do right by our kids, then you shouldn't be a teacher or a nurse or a doctor or whatever you're preparing for, right? And so we have a category that allows us to counsel students out of the program if they're not a good fit for teaching. And we do that. We usually counsel anywhere from, I would say, 5 to 8 students out a year, right? And we do that aggressively in the fall quarter before they pay more and more tuition. So we're pretty aggressive with that. So one of the things I love about our tool, and I'll stop after this to let you ask questions about the tool itself, is the way that we rate our candidates. We always start with what was your objective. We teach our candidates to write content and language objectives because they should be focused on both content and language. That allows us to focus on bilingual kids and also literacy, right? And then we ask them for evidence. How do you know your students met the objective? And then we go to, what do you think you did well? What do you think you need to work on? And then we tell them what we think they did well and what they need to work on. And then we have interventions to the next level. That's part of InTask 2. How do we help you get to the next level? And then we set very concrete goals, right? So they're able to see measurable difference. Every time that we see them, we want to see a measurable difference. Okay. So this is our assessment in the field. This is what it looks like in classrooms. Right? And then we have assessments at the university level. Okay. So these are our university-based assessments. You'll see an example here, the fabric of teaching and learning. This one I love, it's so beautiful. Our candidates just did these in the summer, right? They're looking at the community cultural wealth. They're looking at the assets of the community. And they're creating their own representation of that beauty in the culture, right? And then they're comparing it to themselves. And they learn a lot from comparing their own culture to the culture of the kids that they work with. So they also do a case study, a unit plan, lesson plans, a literacy case study, data analysis, a professional belief statement and plan. This is not all of our assessments, right, in the university. These are just what we consider our core assessments. And they do an electronic portfolio around this. So notice our heavy emphasis on assessment, right? I'm going to take you back again. The field assessment guides everything that we do. It guides our curriculum and our syllabi. Every single one of our syllabi is linked to these competencies, right? Which means that if we know what they should know and be able to do in the field, we build our curriculum backward. So that's the goal of our curriculum at the university, to get them ready to do something in the field. So we've built our curriculum around these competencies, all around what they do in the field, right? So these are built using the FEAT, our Framework for Equitable and Excellent Teaching. Do you see how each one of them is linked to the FEAT? They're also linked to InTask, our Colorado state standards, and the national board standards. So we